The Sunshine Ordinance Task Force called to order on March 19th, 2013 at 4:08 p.m. Ms. Osbury, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Member Nee?
Here.
Nee here. Member Kit Grant? Absent. And Chair Washburn.
Here.
You have a quorum?
And I understand that Member Grant will be here in a little while. She's held up in traffic. So we'll go ahead with the regular agenda. Keeping the agenda as it is, I received an email from Ms. Zamuda from the Controller's Office, hoping that we could get to item number 6 in time to hear it before 6 p.m., and I assured her that we could do that. So I don't see her, but I'm assuming she'll be here later. Ms. Osbury, could you call the next item on the agenda, please?
Yes. Item number 2, adoption of the November 20th, 2012 regular meeting minutes.
Madam Chair.
Member Nee?
Yeah. Reluctantly, I'm going to move for continuance of these minutes. There are some edits and questions that I've suggested, and some of them are serious enough to merit continuation, particularly on page 3 of the minutes. The speaker paragraph near the top, Peter Warfield, expressed the broad powers, the task force has broad powers to inform, and then the sentence leaves off. The sentence as it is unclear, and unfortunately I did not have time to go back and do the necessary research to find out what Mr. Warfield said. I'll try to do that for next time, but for that reason, I really think the minutes need to be continued. Also, a question, page 5, item 10, general public comment. It shows Mr. Warfield is speaking twice, and I'm wondering if that actually took place. So again, that's some research that needs to be done.
All right. I'd like to second the motion. And then, Ms. Osbury, I've received many of the minutes in Word format. I didn't receive these, though. I received, unless they were labeled differently, I didn't receive the November 20th minutes from this committee. You sent me from the task force and then the ones for today. So if you could make a note to send them to me. I have some edits here, including questions about the matters that Member Nee brought up.
Okay, I will send then the March and then also, not March, I'm sorry, the November 20th and February 19th minutes. You don't have those?
No, I do have those.
You do?
Yeah, the ones from last month.
Okay.
And then I have a lot of the ones from the outstanding ones from the full task force.
Okay.
But this is the one that seemed to be missing from that
this
group.
one, November?
The November 20th,
Okay.
right.
Okay. Got it. I just through the chair to Member Nee. I was looking through the minutes also. Some of the corrections that you have are the titles of the actual complaints, which I know that Jerry Treat said we could not change those. Once it's been heard, the title has to stay the same. So like as an actual, page number 2, file number 11088, you have procedural status and order determination underlined and then allegedly crossed out. So titles can't.
Okay, the reason I crossed out allegedly is that by the time these reached the Compliance Amendments Committee, violations had already been determined.
Right, and
that's my recollection.
Right, no, I understand that. And I know that Chair Washburn had made that that notice that in the future, the meeting, the actual agenda would reflect where it wouldn't say allegedly because it's always been heard through the task force. But these were, since it was this last year, that change hadn't been made.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then my other concern was also with that item 11088, you have crossed out of the complaint and responded of the complaint, Ray Hart's complainant provide an update of the complaint, crossed out.
Yeah, just provided an update. The agenda item is already described in the previous paragraph, procedural status of order of determination on complaint. So complainant provides an update, then in the next couple of sentences, respondent was not present to provide an update, again with of the complaint left out. So of the complaint is already clear from the previous paragraph, the complaint and the order of determination. If you want to leave of the complaint in, if you're more comfortable doing that, I really have no problem with it. It's an editing suggestion, from my copy editing sensibilities, if you will. But if you think it's going to be more clear and more precise to leave those words in there, then that's fine by me.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing is on page 4, file number 12009, Jack Song, Office of the City Attorney's Office of the City was striked, but the City Attorney's Office is known as the Office of the City Attorney, so it's just, that was confusing.
Okay. You'll notice in the introductory paragraph to that item, it says City Attorney's Office. So my interest here is in basically consistency.
Got it.
So either way, if you want to say Office of the City Attorney, City Attorney's Office is fine, but I think it should be one or the other, not both.
Understood.
That's, my own personal preference.
All right, so we have a motion to continue the minutes. Is there any public comment on this motion? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Osbury, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Member Nee?
Aye.
Nee, aye. And Chair Washburn.
Aye.
You have 2 ayes.
Okay, the motion carries. Ms. Osbury, would you call the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 3, adoption of February 19, 2013 regular meeting minutes.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt.
I'll second the motion.
Madam Chair?
Member Nee?
Yeah, some minor editorial fixes that I've suggested in there, just, adding or subtracting some punctuation at one place or another. Other than that, really, I think they look very good.
I had a chance to review them, and I saw a few. Ms. Osbury doesn't like commas as much as I do, so I noticed some missing commas, in my opinion. But I'll defer to your editing, and they look fine to me as well. I still wish. I know this doesn't seem to be possible in this building. I always wish for more rather than less in minutes. So, when the complainant and the respondent give updates, it'd be nice to know the substance of it, but I've voiced this many times, but otherwise they look fine. So is there any public comment on the minutes? Member Nee, do you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Ms. Osbury, would you call the roll?
Member Nee?
Aye.
Nee, aye. And Chair Washburn.
Aye.
You have 2 ayes.
The motion carries. And Ms. Osbury, would you call the next item on the agenda, please?
Yes. Item number 4, file number 12011, hearing on the status of order determination of Lars Nyman against Frank Lee, Department of Public Works, for providing requested records regarding the Montgomery Alta Street tree project.
All All right, now I see Mr. Lee from Department of Public Works. I don't see Mr. Nyman.
And I'm sorry.
Ms. Osbury?
Yes, Mr. Nyman has not responded whether or not he would or would not be here, but he was contacted via email.
Okay. All right, we have two matters of Mr. Nyman's. Member Nee?
Well, under the circumstances, I would move to continue to the call of the chair. And if Mr. Nyman contacts us, then we can bring it back.
Right. That's my preference as well. I don't know that we could have a productive discussion here without the complainant. So, and I wanted to acknowledge Member Grant is here, has joined us. So do we need a motion to continue?
So move.
Seconded?
Okay. Are there any public comments on this? Okay. Seeing none. Ms. Osbury, would you call the roll, please?
Member Nee?
Aye.
Nee, aye. Member Grant?
Aye.
Grant, aye. Chair Washburn?
Aye.
3 ayes.
Okay, this matter is continued. I guess we'll notify, we'll put it on the agenda, try again for next month, and see if we hear from Mr. Nyman. Ms. Osbury, would you call the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 5, file number 12012, hearing on the status of termination, Lars Nyman against Frank Lee, Department of Public Works, for not providing requested records and delayed response.
All right, same issue here. Do I have a motion to continue this matter?
So move.
Seconded?
Any public comment on this matter? Ms. Osbury, would you call the roll, please?
Member Nee?
Aye.
Nee, aye. Member Grant?
Aye.
Grant, aye. Chair Washburn?
Aye.
3 ayes.
Again, this matter will be continued until our next meeting. Perhaps we'll hear from Mr. Nyman in the interim. And I wanted to thank Mr. Lee for coming today. All right. We're moving right along here today. Ms. Osbury, would you call the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 6, file number 12038, hearing on the status of order termination, William Clark against Controller Ben Rosenfeld for not providing legal authority supporting that the Arts Commission can legally exceed amount budgeted to street artist program and spend the surplus without approved supplemental appropriations ordinance.
Okay, I see both parties here, and Mr. Clark, you'll have 5 minutes to give us an update on this matter.
Okay, basically, at your task force, you found them in violation because they claim they answered the question I was asking, when in reality, I didn't ask that question. I was asking 3 other questions. I was asking the controller, how come they approved a management and supervision charge for the Arts Commission as an expense when the month before in their controller's audit they had told the Arts Commission that it was the method that they used was improper because they didn't have any public hearings, they didn't go through the Board of Supervisors to have that management and supervision charge, that expense charged the Street Arts Program. That money was returned to the Street Arts Program thanks to me going and getting it. And what my argument was I found out that the next month that the Controller's Office charged an additional $20,000 for the next year's fiscal year's management and supervision, another charge that was done through the exact same method and procedure that the Controller had stated was improper. And I contacted their office, and after a series of discussions of different issues, I asked Mr. Levinson, well, how can, and I provided him with legal authorities. I said, how can you, first of all, sign a warrant for an expense that wasn't included in the budget, wasn't approved by the Board of Supervisors, and in fact was done by the same method you just declared that was invalid and improper. And I also said the fact that you did charge that amount caused the budget to go over budget, and that any expense that's not included in the budget any additional expenses, departments have to get a supplemental appropriation. And the controller said that wasn't the question, that they answered my question, but they said the question I was asking was whether or not it was legal to carry over surpluses from one fiscal year to the next fiscal year. And I totally I pointed out in the email that wasn't the case. But I would like to show you a statement that they made in their rebuttal to the street artists. I think I can use this. I'm not sure if this is right.
Yeah.
This.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, this is their rebuttal to the response, and if you notice down here it says in finding, is that in focus? I can't tell. And that in that statement, it doesn't look in focus, but
It's a bit, there you go, that's better.
okay, there you go. The Arts Commission response letter contends that a policy resolution is not required because the street artist ordinance states that the Board of Supervisors may increase the certificate fee to finance the cost of the Arts Commission administering the ordinance. The Arts Commission is not being consistent in the process for including its costs in the charges to the street arts program. General overhead charges for fiscal year 9-10 were submitted to and approved by the Board of Supervisors, including the 9-10 program budget, and discussed at length with program participants at a street arts committee meeting. By contrast, the management and supervision charges, which are also considered overhead charges, were not specifically approved by the Board of Supers, were not specifically included in the 9-10 program budget, and were simply charged at year end as other current expenses. We believe our recommendation to include see if I can get that. To include management and supervision charges in the budget approval process is reasonable and consistent with the Commission's practice regarding its charges, its costs it charges the street arts program. So in other words, for that year, they said that it was improper for them to charge us that management and supervision charge. Well, I found out a year and a half later that a month after this was given to the public in the Arts Commission, that the deputy controller signed a warrant giving the Arts Commission another $20,000. And so basically, I asked for the legal authority. I was told by Mr. Levithan that what they had was done legally, and I asked for his legal authorities, and he said he would provide them, and they never have. I guess I have 30 seconds, or is that the end?
Your time's up.
Okay.
We'll have questions for you, I'm sure. Now the respondent has, or excuse me, is there anyone here to offer facts and evidence in support of the complainant? Okay, seeing none. The respondent, you have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Monique Zmuda, Deputy Controller, Sitting County. Much of this has gone over at the last meeting. I don't know that there's too much more to offer. I did send an email to Mr. Clark today trying to explain in maybe easier English the allocation methodology of overhead to the street artist program. When the audit was conducted in 2011 by the controller's auditors, they did find that the department did not have a allocation methodology that's consistent with practice, good practice. There were some overhead charges that were appropriate that were combined with discretionary funds, and those two should be separated if the overhead is going to be charged to the various programs. Because of that, we disallowed a certain amount of the overhead, and that's the amount that is being referenced here. After that finding, the department, and at the time, the department did have some difficulties in terms of accounting and financial management. I mean, we did a total management study and found numerous problems, not just in the finance area. The department had new leadership, it had new financial leadership. We actually moved the accountant out of that department elsewhere. And the department started rebuilding some of its financial practices. In doing so, developed an allocation methodology that's consistent with generally accepted governmental accounting procedures. Their allocation to the various programs of overhead was proper, and therefore in the next fiscal year, it was found to be appropriate. The issue of the overhead being approved by the Board of Supervisors, it is a line item in the budget, and it is approved by the Board of Supervisors. Perhaps it's not in the detail that the complainant would wish, but nevertheless, it does follow the budgeting requirements of the city and county. We do not have any additional information or records to provide to reiterate our position, the nature of our findings. They have copies of the audit. I have copies of the audit. We have followed up on the recommendations. The department has implemented the recommendations. And from our respect, we find this to be a closed matter at this point. I am happy to provide additional information if there's a new request, but under these circumstances, the allocation of overhead to the program is now proper from the accounting point of view.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to offer facts and evidence in support of the respondent? Okay. Members? Member Nee?
Yeah, Ms. Smuda, please.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm maybe I'm missing something, or maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't know, but the aside from what is appropriately included in the budget and what is not appropriately included in the budget as line items, the issue here is one of information flow, and Mr. Levinson was asked to provide Mr. Clark with the legal authorities supporting the opinions, and what Mr. Clark is telling us today is that Mr. Levinson has not done so. And so, maybe you know what the legal authorities are. Maybe you can tell us that right now. But at any rate, that's really what I think is missing here. Mr. Clark will correct me if I'm incorrect. But what can you tell us, Ms. Smuda?
On July 12th, 2012, I responded back to Mr. Clark to his question to Mr. Levinson. I said, as the Controller's Office has already stated, the Street Artist Program was set up in a continuing fund. This allows the department to carry forward unspent funds from a prior appropriation that was approved by the board to be used for the original purpose of the appropriation. That's the authority for the department to spend and for the controller to allow the department to spend prior year money for the same purposes for which they were appropriated. And what we have seen in our office is not a request for documents, request for information. We have been in a discussion, in a debate for countless months and years on these issues. We are the Controller's Office. We have done a very extensive audit of this program. We found some discrepancies. The department has made corrections. And we're moving on. We continue to talk about the same issues, the same accounting issues that Mr. Clark doesn't agree to. So yes, we have the authority to allow spending in 1 year. That wasn't part of the budget because it was included in the budget in the previous year that was approved by the board. And what the Controller's Office does is it ensures that that spending is done for the same purpose that it was originally appropriated. It's perfectly proper. It's common practice. It's part of our role of monitoring and controlling the budget. And there is no additional legal authority. I mean, within the charter, there's many, many references of the controller's authority to control spending, to monitor spending, to report on spending. When we ask the city attorney about a financial issue, they refer it back to us because we are the authority on governmental practice, on the expenditures, and so forth. We are audited on an annual basis. We do audits of the departments. And we have discussed this with the Clarks already. So, and it's not to their satisfaction, and I'm very sorry for that, because we do a lot of work with the public on a regular basis, and we do everything we can to provide neutral, factual, timely information. So I apologize for the terrible disagreement that we have here.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Samita, I have a question. I was rereading this in preparation for today's meeting. There are 18 pages to the order of determination, and then in listening to Mr. Clark earlier, so trying to understand from the perspective of the complainant, what the issue is here. And so it seems to me there was a year where there was a misallocation, or there was not a proper authority from the Board of Supervisors for allocating some money, and the Controller's Office acknowledged that, and the money was backed out, and the $20,000. And then something different was done the next year. Is that? I'm not a financial person. I'm struggling to understand these things, but so am I characterizing the disagreement here, however vaguely, correctly?
I am not certain, because it seems like both parties continue to say the same thing, and we're not understanding each other. We have not found any further problems with the segregation of the funding or with the authorization of the Board of Supervisors. And I know that that's their complaint. We have not found any. We have looked, the $20,000 and the allocation, and I'm not familiar with exactly those details, but I do know Mr. Levinson is the Director of Budget and Analysis. He is very experienced in both accounting and financial management. He has looked at this. We had a totally separate team of auditors do the audit. We have a totally separate staff of accountants who manage the accounting transactions. Those are 3 separate divisions within the Controller's Office, and these complaints have occupied the time of all 3, significant amounts of time of all 3 of these divisions in the Controller's Office. And the auditors did find some things. The Budget and Analysis found some things, and the audit group helped the department correct them. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to offer. The street artist program has always been very controversial, very difficult to manage, and perhaps it hasn't been managed well. But the costs that are attributable to that function are correct from an accounting point of view. And that is what the experts in the Controller's Office will tell you. And I don't know what other information I can give to the Clarks that will satisfy their question. And if I can, then I will. But, we have spent a lot of time and resources on this issue. And there's got to be a time when we need to continue to run the financial affairs of the city, and we have to let this go.
Can I ask a
Okay,
question?
yes, Member Grant.
Can I, Mr. Clark, can you come here for a sec?
Yes.
So, in answer to that, what exactly is the question that you want answered right now that you have not got it?
The question I want is, I was told by Leo Levinson that the city attorney had the legal authority to charge a $20,000 management and supervision charge for FY, I believe it's 10-11. Just to show you, this is a copy of the budget that I received for 12/13. Oh, this is not right. I'm sorry.
You can just tell me. Just tell, just tell me.
Okay.
What do you want answered? What is it that you need to know?
In 910, the controller's office, I have the audit with me, so I can read it to you, whatever, stated that the management and supervision charge, which was charged a month after the fiscal year ended, which was $18,000-something, was improperly charged the street arts program because there were no public hearings held. Right? And so I found out a year and a half later that a month after that audit was released, that the controller's office approved another warrant for an additional $20,000 management and supervision charge for the next fiscal year. Now, she just stated that they corrected it, but at that time, they hadn't hired anybody to correct the problems they found out. But I found this out that this was done a month after they told the Arts Commission the process was improper. So what I did is I asked the controller's office a simple question. Well, why was it improper for 910 and then for 1011 it wasn't improper? And he said, well, I have all the legal authorities to support it. And I sent all the legal authorities I had to him saying it was improper. And that, he said he did have them. So I said, okay, give me those legal authorities that show me that this was proper. And all I get back is this statement from her that, oh, well, we corrected this situation. We hired somebody. But that was all done like 7 months after the audit was received. They finally hired Ms. Krell or somebody at the Arts Commission to redo all this stuff and correct this. This was done a month. This warrant was signed 6 months earlier. Nobody was there, and all I wanted to know was how can they say, what legal authorities can they sign a warrant for an item that it wasn't in the budget? The same method was used as the previous month.
So what you're saying is that why, as they said, it was wrong the year of 910, and then why was it right?
Well, I know the reason why it was wrong for 910 was they told the Art Commission because they didn't have any public hearings. It was not included in the budget that was approved by the Board of Supervisors.
So then in 1011, when it was corrected, according to the controller's office,
it wasn't corrected in 1011. That's what I'm saying. In 1011, they charged us.
I'm sorry, not corrected, but they then said they had legal authority. I'm sorry.
They didn't say they had legal authority in 1011. I didn't find out until 1213 that they even charged this. Okay. And then what they're saying is that they created a process for 1011, right? To do it correctly. However, what I'm saying, the process that they're now using wasn't created until 11/12, and they're trying to say that they used that method to come up with this $20,000 when that wasn't the method that was used back in 1011. And all I did was ask Mr. Levinson to provide me with that, and then I got an email from her saying that that they were refusing to answer, that they weren't going to answer my question, and that my question was that I was arguing that surplus cannot be carried forward to the next year and used the next year to pay for expenses. That was not, matter of fact, for 40 years, I've been arguing with them saying that that's what they should do because they've been withholding the surpluses, and I've found over $200,000 that was taken out of our program because they've been taking the surplus and not using it. But
yeah.
I'm sorry,
That's
I'm
okay.
going on.
No.
Mr. Clark, okay, as you're talking, I seem to be understanding it a little bit more clearly, what's been going on. So in 910, there was a problem, and it was acknowledged by Mr. Levinson, and then
Go ahead.
the problem with this management fee.
Right.
The same thing was done 1 month later after an admission that it was.
After the end of 10-11, 1 month after the end of 10-11 fiscal year, they did the same thing for 10-11.
Okay, all right. And since then, though, there has been an extensive audit, which Ms. Amuda described
Well, the audit
to us.
was actually done before 10-11. That's when the audit came out. I believe, let's see, I have the date here. Okay, the audit came out on July 12, 2011.
Okay, so there also have been some changes made to improve the system.
There have
Because
been
it was
some changes.
Okay, so I'm wondering now if the system in place now is much improved and is functioning properly. There was a mistake made in 9/11. That was an admission was made about that mistake.
In 9/10.
9/10.
I'm sorry.
Right. The same mistake was made in 10/11, which you later caught. You're wondering what the illegal authority was. Could it be?
Right.
Could it be that there was in fact no legal authority for this because it wasn't really legal as it was admitted in 9/10?
Right.
And in fact, there is nothing Mr. Levinson could point to that could say that there was any legal authority for this, because there wasn't any.
Well, he was the one who said that he had it.
Well, he misspoke then. And now the controller's office is saying, we've really reviewed our systems. We've made some changes.
Right.
We believe that the current accounting practices are sound and legal, and all of this should be functioning smoothly. And there's nothing they can give you that will provide you with Mr. Levinson's legal authority for fiscal year 10-11 because there wasn't any. He misspoke. Could that be?
I don't think he misspoke. I think he told me that if he had misspoken, as you're alluding to, then she would have just said that in her response to me instead of portraying a false question in front of this commission that I had asked. And even that, today she's doing it again. Instead of portraying that I had asked a question that I didn't ask, she would have just said, hey, we made a mistake, he misspoke. There are no legal authorities to support what we did. Excuse me one second. So what I'm saying is that what I asked for, see, what they're doing right now is in 910 they didn't include in 1011 they didn't include a line item as a management and supervision charge in it. They didn't do it in 910, and now what they're doing is they're saying, okay, we're going to include that in the overhead charges, and what they do is they just say overhead charges charges, and they have a total amount of money that's being allocated for overhead charges, so that they can come up in front of you now and say, oh, we've corrected the situation. We no longer list this in the budget itself, but we list it in the budget. It's listed and counted as an overhead charge, which we don't have to actually put in the budget, but we can charge it later on and then claim it's an overhead charge.
Okay, so I think we're moving kind of far afield from the matter that we're really talking about.
Okay.
So the specific issue before our task force, it's not how the accounting is done for the street artist program. It's really this particular matter of the legal authorities for an action regarding the 10-11 budget. And so
Right.
From where I'm sitting now, I'm starting to be convinced that there's nothing that they could show you because there wasn't anything there.
Well, I'm being convinced that there's nothing for them to show me because they don't, if they had those authorities, they would have been glad to present them to me. I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is that rather than do that, they forced me to file a complaint here because they didn't respond to my initial request. They didn't respond to the complaint. They twisted the question that I asked when they appeared in front of the task force, and they're still continuing to claim that we've argued back and forth. I'm sorry. I can get all that on my rebuttal.
Right, okay, yeah, you will have a rebuttal. So I think members, do you have any more questions for Mr. Clark or Ms. Amuda before we move on to rebuttal? Member Nee?
I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment. Ms. Muda, does Mr. Levinson still work in the controller's office?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
He is now, however, on loan to be the finance director for the what we call the successor agency to the redevelopment agency.
I'm just wondering.
He is still with us.
I'm wondering, since he's the one most directly involved with this, it would have been helpful, I think, if he had been here today. And, you have you have been very cooperative with us, and we appreciate that. You've answered questions to the extent that you're able, but I think there are some things that really Mr. Levinson needs to answer here.
I have spoken to Mr. Levinson about this many times. The reason that I took over, if you will, this particular public request is because it was taking an inordinate amount of staff time. And frankly, there was a tremendous amount of stress and anger. And so as deputy controller, I took it on, and I am representing Mr. Rosenfield. I am representing Mr. Levinson. They were at their wits' end trying to respond to the many, many convoluted questions, distorted belief of how the money moves around, and we just couldn't afford to spend any more time.
Thank you.
Member Grant, do you have any more questions?
Final questions or comments? No,
Before we move on to rebuttals.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. I think that there was a confusion about the legal authority, and I think that there was an attempt to, the best of their ability, try to answer these questions that were being posed, but not fully understanding the whole thing. So I kind of agree with you on this one, just to put that out there.
Okay.
So we can go to rebuttals.
All right. Ms. Amuda, you have 3 minutes for a rebuttal.
And again, I will be very brief. There are many issues that have come up from the Mr. Clark, and there were many issues that came up in the audit. We have attempted to respond to all of them. The question of the allocation of the overhead is somewhat of a complex one, but to try to put it in fairly easier to understand, that the findings that we had was that the department took essentially 2 pots of money and put it in one place and didn't keep track of it. And then they allocated some of it to overhead. So we said, no, they shouldn't do that. They should keep the money separate. In addition, they estimated the amount of time of supervision and other management that was applied in the overhead, and we had recommended that they develop a methodology to be more precise. So that was a second issue. And then the third issue that we found relating to this particular overhead account is that in the past, it had been approved by the Board of Supervisors as a line item, and what the department had done is it added some other administrative cost and then applied it to the overhead. And we said, you really shouldn't do that. It had been approved by the board before. That's what the public is accustomed to. You should continue to do it in that way. And so those 3 items had been corrected. The overhead charge to the street artist program in the latter year was similar to the dollar value that we had actually disallowed in the previous year, because all of their ducks were in the row. They had allocation methodologies, they had all the money segregated, it had been approved by the board, and therefore that allocation is appropriate. What legal authority? These are generally accepted accounting principles. We did an audit. We reviewed the recommendations with them. They agreed with most of the recommendations. We actually go back 6 months afterward, and we see that they have implemented the recommendations. And that is why we don't have any additional documentation to show them. If they want to see the allocation calculations, we can get those from the department and show them, but what they're asking for is not a document or records that exist.
Wow, there's so much misinformation that you are being given. It's ridiculous. No, this is nothing. She's totally distorting what's going on. I don't want to see any figures. I want to see legal authorities for why they could charge a management and supervision charge. Why it was illegal one year, and then the next year it was appropriate and legal, even though it was done by the same methods. All I asked them was to provide me with their legal authorities to support what they were saying was okay. Mr. Levinson told me in emails, which, by the way, I don't talk to them very often. He told me that it was legal for them to charge something that wasn't in the budget, wasn't the line item. It was never approved by the Board of Supervisors, not even as an overhead charge. This has never been discussed. At the time I did this, it was never discussed by the Board of Supervisors. And I sent Mr. Levinson legal authority saying that a supplemental appropriation in front of the Board of Supervisors was required, and he said no, it wasn't. And he explained that it was because there was a mid-year surplus. And so he continued to state that this was the case. Now, I just want to make it clear that the issue here, that I have the controller's audit right here, they state that the management supervision charge, it wasn't just the method, how they figured out the math of the figure. It was the fact that there were no public hearings at the Arts Commission. There was no Arts Commission policy that was ever approved, and that the Board of Supervisors had not approved, had it, and there was never a public hearing on that charge. And all I'm saying is, well, you said these things to them in your audit, which I wish I have it here. It's too long to read. But how can one of your deputies sign a warrant 1 month the next month? And he said, well, it's legal for us to do it, and I have the legal authorities. And he said, and then what I want to say, this was willful, because had it not been willful, all they had to do was say to me, well, Mr. Levinson is wrong. We made a mistake. We don't have legal authorities. And now we've come up with new ways of making this figure, and we're going to put it in front of the Board of Supervisors, and we're going to have public hearings, which to this time, it's never been approved by the Board of Supervisors. And he was wrong. He misspoke, like you said. But no, what they did is they didn't respond to this complaint and then sent you a false question claiming that that's what I was asking. Thank you. I'd like to say more about it.
Okay, the matters with the task force.
This is, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Member Nee.
This is, I think, one of the problems here is a lack of communication between the two parties. Mm-hmm. You know, I think they need to really sit down and work together to understand each other. I don't detect that that's happened. I think that Ms. Smuda has been telling us that there has been quite a bit of communication, and what it's done is bring about a lot of stress, and that the controller's office has had to move on to other things. But I'm really not sure that that the communication is between them is really where it needs to be. It's not producing the needed result. And it would be, I think, probably the easiest for us to continue this for a month, but I'm not sure that that's what we want to do here. Madam Chair, you've pointed out that the legal authority isn't there, that the documentation and the legal authority that Mr. Clark would like to see don't exist. And, maybe that's what we're dealing with here. I'm interested in hearing from my colleagues and from the public.
Member Grant?
Madam Chair.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I do agree with Member Nee. I don't know what to do with this because I do think it's a lack of communication between the two parties. I think that Ms. Smuda has been trying, the way that she's understanding it, to answer Mr. Clark, but the legal authority, it's not a legal authority necessarily, it might be an authority within the controller's office, and I think that's a big issue right there, the name of legal authority versus authority of the controller's office. So there is not going to be a Section 67 something that provides direct legal authority, so that Mr. Clark will not be happy until he sees that, and then Ms. Smuda is providing and answer the best of her office's ability. So they keep going back and forth, trying to get the answer. And within our jurisdiction, what we can do here is really try to get him the answers that he wants, but those answers aren't there. And so that's why we're going to keep going back and forth. So I don't know necessarily what to do next. To continue it to what? Do we go back? It's so many issues at hand. So it is quite muddled and quite confusing, as both parties have admitted. So,
Right. I think there have been, in my tenure on the task force, and I'm sure in Member Nee's much longer tenure on the task force, we've heard many matters about the street artists program. And I think the street artists program is one of the unique ones in the city in that the street artists themselves fund the entire program. And there was an ordinance, and so voters approved this manner of doing things. So it's understandable that the Clark brothers, who were instrumental in getting this program started, feel some, this is their legacy, their baby. So they've been very invested, and there have been many problems along the way, and fees have been increased, and there have, from what I've figured out, there's just been some pretty shoddy accounting. I mean, that's clear from this case. There's been shoddy record keeping in terms of use of the city attorney's office for handling public records requests, for example. And so we are, I guess the EOT will be working with, I hope Howard Lazar will be attending, because I think he's key here. He's not been good about coming to our meetings, our hearings. And so to work on some of this, having sound business records. But in this particular case, I don't know that there's much we can do more here. There definitely is a communication problem. There's a lot of frustration, understandably. It's palpable. I feel my stomach's kind of churned up just trying to figure out what to do here to be fair and have something positive come out of it. But I have to say, in listening to this, in my understanding is that a mistake was made in 910, and there was no legal authority for doing what they had originally done, and then the same thing was done in 1011, and the person who said there was no legal authority in 910 said, he was acting under legal authority for 1011. But the only way I can understand that is that when he said that, he was misspeaking. That, in fact, he could not pull up something showing a legal authority for doing that. It didn't exist because it didn't exist in 910, so why would it exist in 1011? But now things are working differently. So, I don't know that there's anything, I don't see anything more to do here. I think there's a lot more that can be done with the street artist program and how records are kept there. I think that's something we can work with, and certainly some way to better respond to public records requests in a way that isn't so frustrating to the clerks, who, as I've come to understand, have a feeling of, they're the grandpas here. This is so. That's how I'm understanding it at this point in time. Member Nee.
Yeah. Continuing with that thought, I think what we have here are a couple of separate issues. Number one is the legal authority and the flow of information regarding that legal authority. The information that you want apparently isn't there, and we can't ask somebody to produce information that is non-existent. But that doesn't mean that there is, pardon the double negative, it doesn't mean necessarily that there is not a legitimate beef against the Arts Commission and the Street Artists Committee and the Street Artists Program. Those grievances might well be there, they might well be valid, they're the kinds of grievances that, as near as I can tell, don't fall within our purview here at the task force. So I think at this point, I agree with with Chair Washburn that kind of we have done all we can, and it's got to move now to kind of a different sphere, a different arena within city government in order for this to be resolved satisfactorily. That's my read of it.
Member Grand?
I absolutely agree.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And good luck to both sides on this.
Yeah.
We don't have a motion. We're going to have general, well, no, we'd have to, I'll entertain some public comment on this, even because there are some parties here of interest.
Robert Clark. I'm asking because under the hearing procedures, it says the matters with the task force for motion and deliberation. And then it says public comment excluding complaint and city response. So it doesn't say that you have to have a motion for public comment. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. My brother and I have been as clear as we can be on what questions we were asking. The controller made it clear that he had the legal authority to, one, pay off this management and supervision charge, even though it was done exactly the same way the year before. He claimed he had the legal authority to use the surplus, even though it went over the budget, and he claimed that he was able to use that money because even though it wasn't, the expense wasn't on the budget itself. We presented all the laws showing that he didn't have the legal authority, but he kept continuing telling us he had the legal authority. So my brother and I asked very simply for those legal authorities, and then all of a sudden this nonsense starts where we're being accused of asking a ridiculous question in an attempt to discredit my brother and I and to make it to muddy up the water, basically to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This, all of a sudden, this ridiculous question comes forward that this is what we were asking, that we were arguing with them for all this time. We never argued with them about that. My brother and I, for 35 years, have been arguing with them to do exactly that, because for 35 years, the Controller's Office has not been going by the law, has not been using surplus and carrying it over for the next year and lowering the street artist fee accordingly. Instead, they've been withholding it for 35 years, causing our fees to get raised higher and higher and higher, and it's exactly what's happening right now because of it. Our fee is going so ridiculously high. So I'm asking that you, at the very least, send this back to the task force, for the task force to make the decision whether this was a willful attempt by the Controller's Office to set forth this phony argument that my brother and I have been asking a ridiculous question, and that Leo Levinson should have been present here today. I respect her for coming and trying to do the best she could, but Leo Levinson should be here to answer those questions. Leo Levinson was the one that said that he had the legal authority. In effect, if he doesn't have the legal authority, he's lying to the public. He's telling the public he can go by laws that he does not have the authority to go by. He is deliberately violating the law and then lying to the public.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to offer public comment on this matter?
Hello, Commissioners or Task Force members. My name is Mike Adario. I am the former liaison person for the San Francisco Street Artist Program. I was the chairperson. I was the one that initiated the audit. After some 39 years, we never had an audit with the Street Artist Program, and I was the one that basically had to force the controller to do it. We've seen many problems with the finances. I agree with the Clark brothers. I think at the minimum it should be sent back to the task force. If Mr. Levison made this statement, which I'm assuming that he did, and there is no legal authority, then we should get that in writing that he misspoke. I mean, I think that should be that he misspoke and that he doesn't have the legal authority. Then we could take it to the next step. But I think we should at least get it to that point. I wanted to... there's also the communication problem that we constantly come across is because Howard Lazar has the euphemism of being a director, but he is not really a director. He is an assistant manager. And he doesn't, and he has said this many times, doesn't represent the street artists. So when the controller is talking to Howard Lazar, he's basically talking to another department, and the stakeholders, which is myself, I'm a photographer, I'm a street artist, and the Clark brothers, we're not in those discussions. So we don't know about it. We didn't know about the stolen money from the office. We didn't know about the checks that were being bounced that we got charged for. We didn't know about the surplus until we kept going in and asking, what is this about? What is this rumor? And we kept finding out more and more stuff. I don't know if you read the recent grand jury report that said the Street Arts program is so mismanaged by the Arts Commission that it should be moved to the Office of Small Business. Who's the common denominator here? The Arts Commission and Howard Lazar. Two common denominators. We have had problems. I've been in the program 10 years. The Clark brothers, I think 20 years ago, found a surplus, $58,000, that was refunded back into the program. They just don't care. They think it's a cash cow. They'll keep on charging us. Any mistake they make, they keep on charging us. I have an overhead, if I can. Just to put this in context, if you can see the different street artist programs around the country, I don't know if you can see it, New York and Venice Beach are 0, Austin, Texas is 200, Berkeley is 240, this is per year.
These are fees that charge the street artists?
Yes. Key West is $400. And ours is going to be $842. We pay for 2 civil servants fully. It's over $300,000 that we pay to the Arts Commission for this. Way out of line, way out of line. If we had one civil servant, it would bring it down to around $459. So there is something very, very wrong with this situation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy.
Thank you. That was very informative.
Thank you.
Well, Member Nee.
Yeah. Even though it does not appear that there is a motion to come forth today, there was an order of determination based on the hearing that took place before the full task force. And I was not at that hearing. I was recuperating from a minor surgery that I had, so I was not at that meeting. But there was an order of determination. The task force found that the controller violated 6721B. And I would hope that the report that goes from this committee to the Sunshine, to the full task force will be fairly thorough on the dilemma that confronted us today. It's very possible that we should continue this matter and have Leo Levinson appear before us, either before us or before the full task force. I am really not satisfied that what we're that what we are doing today brings satisfactory resolution. And I would personally think Mr. Levinson should have come before us. You know, as much as I respect and appreciate Ms. Zamuta's participation in this, I think there are questions that for which Mr. Levinson should be held accountable.
I have to say, seeing that I'm a researcher and I'm accustomed to working not with financial data but with other kinds of data and certainly graphs and charts, and I have to say, seeing that chart, I feel somewhat sick to my stomach. I have to tell you, it was shocking. $842 is an enormous amount of money for an artist to have to pay. That's huge. And we know that we know from the Comptroller's office there have been many problems. Where grand jury report there are many problems. You know, I'm thinking that maybe there is some role for us here. I mean, I think we can. We could ask to speak to the person who said that he had the legal authority to, you know, that we could make that request. And I don't know, Member Grant.
I think that I didn't know that much about the street artist group, but I have learned a lot from the Clark brothers, and I see how they're invested, and I see that it is, and these numbers that you just presented are pretty crazy, to put it mildly. But I guess my concern is that we can't affect those numbers. That 800, we can't. So calling Mr. Levinson here to the legal authority, it's different issues. Well, I may not agree. I think $800 is a lot of money for people out there trying to make a living based upon their art and the street artists. And I think that I think it's a great thing to have out there. So, but I think us calling him here to do what exactly? That's what I want to be clear about, because he said he had legal authority. I think it's really confusing, because I think the whole idea that there is no document, there's no precedent for a legal authority when he said that he had it, but I think that there is some authority, and that's what Ms. Smuda is coming here saying. So before we move it on, I just still am not convinced that what are we going to get out of bringing him or continuing this and having him come back to this committee. I don't see this going to the full task force again, because I don't understand what we would get out of that, bringing this case again. And I voted that he was in violation the first time. But understanding now what it is that was exactly asked for, the fact, kind of getting more into the nitty-gritty and reading more into it, I do think that they've provided what they think they were supposed to provide, and the Clark brothers like, this isn't what I want. But what they want may not be right there. They're not. People on neither side is going to ever be happy right now. We're never going to come to both parties being happy and having clear communication, because there's some major issues at hand. There's a lot of they're butting heads regardless on the fees, on all these things, but it doesn't have anything to do with us. So I guess that's my concern with what are we going to do next? Like, I'm all about I want to make sure something comes of this. That if there is a legal authority, if there's a document that there was a legal authority, then you guys had it and you didn't give it to them, then you guys are in the wrong. But if there's no document, what are we going to tangibly be able to affect? And that's what I would love to do, something tangible. So,
I just wanted to say, as far as documents, we do have purview over information. Right,
too.
Right.
So.
And I guess we do have a correspondence here from Mr. Levinson about fiscal year 9-10 saying a mistake was made and explaining why there was a mistake. So I guess citing the ordinance and how things were supposed to work, and then a month later, the same thing was done again, and I don't know. Member Nee?
I have nothing further at this moment.
Okay. Did you make a motion?
No,
Okay. All right.
but I would urge that in our committee report to the full task force, we be fairly thorough in explaining what the issues were before us and how we, the kind of dilemmas that confronted us.
Right. I mean, one thing we do have is we have the record of this meeting. There is a recording of this meeting. And so we are very concerned. And when I report at the full task force meeting next month, I want to go over, the specifics here. I will talk about this matter again. We'll have general public comment. I mean, this is something that doesn't have to go away. It's not clear that we can ask the full task force to, or recommend that they do something further. So, so I'll be reporting about this, and I'll urge Member Nee and Member Grant to back me up. So I think the full task force needs to, since they did vote to send this to compliance and amendments, we had the order of determination, we need to let them know what happened. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Osprey to call the next item on the agenda.
Item number 7, public comment.
Is there anyone here to offer public comment on matters not on the agenda so far?
Right. William Clark. I just want to make you aware, since I announced at the full task force that I had filed a complaint with the Arts Commission to change its policy for suspension and revocation of street art certificates from what it is now to a different method, because the method that they use now, they only require 3 art commissioners to vote to revoke a certificate when there are 16 members of the full Arts Commission. And I said that based on the same reasoning that you all had to change your policy, that they should have to change that policy. And that policy is, in fact, a law. It's part of the clarification legislation that was passed. And this was like 3 months ago, and I was told by Mr. Lazar that the city attorney was looking it over. And so I waited for another 2 months, and he said he's still looking it over. And at the recent I was trying to get that calendared for this last month, which is once every 2 months we have a meeting, and he still is looking over whether or not that there's a problem with the fact that the Arts Commission is only having 3 members of their 16 members actually vote and carry and do this. So I just want to make you aware that the city attorney seems to be having a problem with clarifying this for me, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to pursue it, and hopefully it doesn't take much longer, but I don't see why it's taken as long as it is. I think something weird is going on, because he had no problems telling you all that you did something wrong, so I don't know why there's a problem here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Clark. I wanted to talk about, at the last task force meeting, my brother and I requested that the task force members listen to the hearing that occurred in regards to Mr. Lazar's willful misconduct and the ruling on the Ethics Commission. And I just want to talk a moment on that, because if you haven't listened to it, I'm going to ask again that you listen to it, because it's really important. Because if any of these complaints that we have or any other person has goes in front of the Ethics Commission on a willful conduct thing, if the Ethics Commission is going to overrule the Sunshine Task Force under Chapter 2, when they're supposed to assume that you guys are correct, then people like me who go into those meetings thinking, well, the respondent is going to have to overcome the burden of proof, and then when I attend those meetings and I hear the Ethics Commission saying, no, you didn't overcome your burden of proof, but we're going to rule in your favor because the Sunshine Task Force didn't provide us enough evidence, then the whole concept of this new bylaw that the task force and the Ethics Commission worked so hard together, and probably you guys worked harder than they did, but you came to this new Chapter 2 bylaw and thinking that, okay, when this is presented in front of the Ethics Commission, you won't have the same problem. But the person what I'm trying to say is that if I'm still requesting that you ask for a rehearing on our matter, and in the process of asking for a rehearing, you can discuss with the Ethics Commission the fact that they violated their own bylaw in order to come to their ruling, and that if that's what they are going to do in the future, then I don't see how we can even bother going to the Ethics Commission at this point. I think and what I'm trying to say, I think from your point of view of trying to work with the Ethics Commission, it's a blatant example of, I don't see how you could have any more evidence than proof that the Ethics Commission is going to just refuse to find certain people, city officials, in willful misconduct, willful violation of these your orders of determination, if they're going to turn around and then just violate their own Chapter 2 after they claim that they were going to go by it. So I'm rambling on because I really don't know how to say it in strong enough terms that you really ought to confront the Ethics Commission on this.
Expired.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. Mike Adario again. One of the things I had sent you a letter, I hope you got it. It was about the ethics violation on Howard Lazar 11023 that you had sent to the Ethics Commission. The grand jury, if you haven't read that, it's very good reading, Where There's Smoke. This was a civil grand jury out of 2012. They looked into this, and they claimed that Howard Lazar was being investigated. Well, for this ethics committee, well, the DA came back and said they never got the letter. They never got the letter, so they're not investigating it. And they called, I guess they called over to the ethics committee, and the ethics committee said they never got it either. So basically, we're not doing anything. So all that work that everybody put into that complaint, for some reason, never made it over there. And I'm asking you to possibly resend it, send it certified, or send it with a receipt, or maybe if it's, I don't know, I don't think this should have happened. I don't see how it could have happened, and definitely don't think it should ever happen again. Anybody that, any complaint that you send to Ethics Committee probably should have something on there, return receipt requested, that they got it, it's on their agenda, and you're going to follow up on it. So I'd just like to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea, what was it? I'm sorry. Madam Chair.
No, go ahead.
No, what was the date on that? What was the date of the letter you're talking about? I got it. You sent it to us. Just out of curiosity. And to
I believe it
follow up
was,
on it. Because that will fall for me.
I sent it February 25th, 2013. That's when I sent it. Oh, the letter that went out from you?
That you're saying that they said they never received.
On July 6, 2011. And it's
Okay.
complaint 11023.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll
You're
look
welcome.
into that.
Okay, I don't see anyone else for public comments, so Ms. Osprey, would you call the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 8, Administrator's Report. At this time, there's nothing to report. There are no pending items that are before the Complaints and Amendments Committee. So nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Would you call the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 9, Announcements, Comments, Questions, and Future Agenda Items.
Members, do you have anything?
No.
I don't either. Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
This meeting is adjourned at 5:30.
Thank you, members,
Thank
for all
you.
your time, and we really do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming.
Sorry to make you sick, though, because it's making me sick.
I know.
I appreciate everything, I really do.
Okay.
Have a good night.
I don't really know.
Mr. Clark, just out of curiosity, you're probably the street artist. What do you do? What is your photographer? Or?
No, I'm a designer jewelry.
Oh, you do jewelry?
Casting, and I do fabricated casting. I do all my own designs.
Oh, so you do metals?
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
I work mostly in sterling.
Oh, sterling and what? It's too expensive. It's too expensive.